Yes. All right, today I talk about two things, the wrangle and the writing assignment. Now, the only thing I'm really going to talk about with the wrangle is this survey form, and the only purpose of this survey form is so that I do not put you on a team defending a proposition that you absolutely hate. I work on what I call the equal misery principle. I aim to make no one any more miserable than anyone else. I'm very unlikely to be able to please you, but hopefully I will not make you uniquely miserable. So what I'm going to ask you to do sometime before the end of class is go through these paired statements and circle the little number of the one you most agree with, the one that is closest to your own opinion. Now, if you don't have an opinion here, you can just leave it blank. And that will mean that I might put you on either side. If I choose that topic for a wrangle, I can put you on either side. If you look at one of these topics and you say, I do not want to be up in front of class talking about this. I don't care what side I'm on, I don't want to be talking about this. Cross the thing out. Just cross the whole pair out and I'll know not to put you on any team associated with that topic. You'll be able to sit in the audience watching other people suffer. Finally, if you come across one of these things and you choose your side and then you think, you know, I'd like to talk about that. Or even, this one looks slightly less boring than all the others. If you have a preferred topic, put a little asterisk in the box here. You see the little square box here? That gets a little asterisk if you like this topic. If you like this topic, the way I choose what topics we're going to talk about is I just look at these dots. And if a topic gets a lot of asterisks, a lot of people seem to like the topic, and there's people on both sides, then I can do that topic. Some topics a lot of people like, but everybody's on the same side. There's nobody to put on the other team. So we don't get to do those. Is this all clear?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So if you don't really care what you talk about, you can just leave the whole entire sheet blank.
Right, you can leave it entirely blank. And then I'll put you wherever I need you. See, I like to have a couple of those because then I can just say, okay, I can put it in anywhere. So, and just leave you to the bottom of the stack until everybody else is assigned, and then you get the cleanup work. So, and the other thing about wrangling, I want to remind you, it's very hard to explain. It's sort of like a debate. It's hard to explain, but easy to do. You're going to be on a team defending this proposition, but I'm going to tell you how to do it as we go along. And it's participation grade, so if you're up here trying to do it, you get full marks. If you're up here cooperating, trying to do it, doing what I ask you to do, then you're going to get all 10 points, or whatever it is. So, any questions? You should have 2 pieces of paper for the, say, that's a question. You need this. Okay, come up and get all of this, and there's a sheet missing that you can link to. You should have 2 pieces of paper, one that looks like this, and one that doesn't. You should say Odyssey Topics for Intro to Philosophy. I ran out of these, but the course website has a link to Odyssey Topics for Intro to Philosophy. And if that doesn't work, send me an email. My email is on here, squiptrix@gmail.com, SQUIPTRYX, gmail.com. It's a word I made up. I Googled it a couple of months ago, and it just didn't come up. Scriptrix is a word that is, apart from me, it's not on the internet.
What does it mean?
It doesn't mean anything. It's the name of a cartoon character I invented for a comic strip I did back in 1978. That was never published. Didn't even try to publish. I drew it on paper plates. Whoops.
Where were you at?
I was at the Los Angeles Science Fantasy Society. Since 1934, the home of the LA area's worst geeks and nerds, and the occasional spaz. Yeah, I'm a science fiction fan. I'm not just a geek, I am an uber geek. It's a word I made up to mean someone who's really geeky.
With your glasses.
Huh?
With your glasses. With tape or without.
No. When you're at my level, you don't need the regalia. All right. So, there is actually a web page. You look at the top of the back of the syllabus. The back of the syllabus, the first web page linked on the back of the listed on the back of the syllabus, introodyssey.htm. That's the official topic list, because I update it more frequently than I do the paper copy, and I can update it and put it online instantly. So if I change it, I make any changes, make any additions. So now,
Are these page numbers for the 3rd edition or the 4th edition of the book?
oh Christ, I think they're 3rd edition. If you have trouble with the page numbers, email me. I think they're the 4th edition, but it's the 3rd edition is really, really close. So anyone has trouble with page numbers, email me. If I have to print another syllabus for the other edition, I will, because I can. It's also the named topics.
What edition do you want us to get?
There's now a 4th edition. You know what publishers do is every so often they produce a new edition of the book. The reason they do this is to make it impossible for you to buy used editions of the textbook. So they bring out a new edition. Usually it's almost exactly the same. That's what happened in this case. There's just a little bit of reading that's in the 4th edition that's not in the 3rd. And you guys let me know. Tell you what, if you've got what I'm going to do sometimes is take account of people who've got the 3rd edition. Sorry, people who've got the 3rd edition, and I'll photocopy any reading that's new.
So we don't need the book?
You do need the book. I'll just photocopy what's new. That'll be like a couple pages, not the whole damn thing.
I think the bookstore only has the 3rd edition.
They only have the 3rd edition. Okay. I had a bookstore at another school that only had the 4th edition. I could slap these. Eventually, I will write my own text and put it online. I am so looking forward to that. Okay. So, now, okay, I've got basically 3 pages of text about the writing assignment. Can you guess why I have 3 pages of text about the writing assignment? Used to be, I would do the writing assignment in like a paragraph, like, like this, like 4 or 5 paragraph like this. Okay. This would be the writing assignment, just this paragraph. The writing assignment is actually something fairly simple. Well, at the end of the semester, you will see the writing assignment as something fairly simple. You'll look at the back of the writing assignment and say, okay, yeah, I could do that again. Easy. I don't have to, I know exactly what I'm doing. At the beginning of the semester, the writing assignment is going to look horrendously complicated. Part of this is because there are lots and lots of misconceptions about writing. Writing is actually a very, very simple thing, but unfortunately some teachers, some professors make it more complicated than it has to be and make it wrong. There are ways of teaching writing wrong. Have you ever had a professor or a teacher have you write papers and you look at the instructions and you go, why on earth do I have to do it this way? What on earth is the point of doing this? Right. There's a simple explanation for this. That teacher is a dumbass. I have a buddy, he's a bus driver. His explanation for anything is stupid. Like his wife will say, why did that guy do that? Stupid. No, it works. The point of writing in college is to demonstrate that you can think seriously and carefully and rigorously, that you can think about the material, that you can think to a high standard about the material. That's it. That you can sit down, do some thinking. So a paper is fundamentally a report of thinking you have done about the subject. It is part of your experience stream, part of your stream of consciousness goes down on paper so I can look at it and say, aha, this person has really been thinking about this stuff. And I give you an A. Papers that do not demonstrate thinking don't get good grades, or at least they should. So a lot of stuff that is associated with writing, you're supposed to do this, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, is unnecessary and unproductive, and can make you feel that you've done a writing assignment when you really haven't. Very so often, not so much now, but when I was a teaching assistant at UCI, I would get papers where the student had sat down and worked very hard to make something that looked like a philosophy paper. He hadn't done any actual philosophy, but he created something that to him looked like a philosophy paper. It was pretentious and incomprehensible, therefore it had to be philosophy. So I don't care about academic language as long as you're clear and precise. You can be clear and precise without using complicated phraseology and big words or anything like that. I mean, use the big word if it's the right word. But if a small word will do, go ahead. That's the word. If an obscenity is the best way to sum up your opinions, put in the obscenity. At this point, I'd like to remind people that my writing standards are not necessarily typical of professors at this institution. So if you get an A for an obscenity-laced paper in my class, that doesn't mean that those obscenities will get you an A in any other class. Right. So, here's a timeline of the writing process. there's a timeline for every writing process. The clock's already running for you guys because you've got the prompt. You get the piece of paper that tells you what you're supposed to do. And it ends when you turn in the paper. By the way, do you guys know the best rule for deciding when a paper is finished? I developed this at Cal State Fullerton when I was an undergraduate. I decided a paper was finished when I was sick of looking at it. When I could no longer look at my work without retching, that's it, it's done, ready to turn in. Okay, so you get the prompt, you do stuff, do stuff, do stuff, do stuff, do stuff, do stuff, turn in a paper. At what point in this timeline, from start to finish, at what point do you pick a thesis? You guys know what a thesis is? A thesis is what you're going to say. Right? If you're writing about cat juggling would be the topic. A thesis might be cat juggling should be taught in grade school, or cat juggling should be banned absolutely, or cat juggling should only be done by bodybuilders who juggle tigers. I'd pay to see that, wouldn't you? So that's a thesis, right? What you're going to say. If you're going to write about paddling in school, a thesis would be, I'm against it. I'm for allowing it. I'm for making it mandatory. I think we should go beyond paddling and use tasers and cattle prods. I told you to pay attention. That's good for him. Little electricity never hurt anyone much. Right. At what point in the writing process do you pick your thesis? Do you decide what opinion you are going to defend in the paper?
At the beginning.
At the beginning. Right.
I'd say not at the very beginning, but once you get your information, then you go from there.
Okay, good. I'm going to say it's more the middle of the process. In fact, it may be a lot closer to the end than the beginning. Now, usually if a student says in the beginning, I will verbally torment that student, but he's bigger than me.
I didn't say that. He did. He's small.
No, I'm talking, he's bigger than me. You're much bigger than me. He's still bigger than me. He's an athlete, too.
He's got heels on.
Shut up! I was just watching The Wire, the sort of scene where the dock workers talk this weedy little guy into taking on a guy that's twice his size. Oh, that wasn't. You're not going to fool me. Okay. Anyway, okay. So you say you think it's the beginning. How much at the beginning of the process? How much do you know about the subject? Nothing. It's the beginning of the process. You just know what your topic is. The most important part of any writing assignment is the process of thinking your way through the material. The process of coming to a decision about which side is right about the issue. Picking the thesis up front forecloses discussion. It's picking a position that you want to hold and then defending that position. It's not good. When you choose your position, a psychological process happens whereby you tend to be biased towards information that favors your position and against information that opposes it. I've noticed this thing, when people pick a thesis, they're often very, very, very resistant to changing their minds. I know a couple of people like this. My friend Wendy Newton and apparently her dad. They're very opinionated. I've been told when when Bob has an idea, he won't let go of it. When he's made up his mind about something, that's it. He's there. No amount of information will get him to change it. Have you ever heard the old saying, I've made up my mind, don't confuse me with the facts? There's this condition called I call fact resistance, or information resistance. My ex-wife was very good at this. People don't like, at a certain point, people don't like to absorb new information. Because if they absorb the new information, they might have to change their minds. What I'm trying to teach in a philosophy class, and indeed any class that purports to include critical thinking, is that there's a process of making up your mind. Now there's also a trick here. At about the middle of the process, you pick a thesis, but you pick it tentatively. That is, you do thinking, 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 thinking. You know, it's kind of looking like cat juggling is morally okay. So my thesis is going to be cat juggling is morally okay unless I come across some new information that makes me change my mind. Unless I think about it some more and I find, I figure out a reason I hadn't thought of before to make it bad. When do you finally settle on a thesis? When you're going to say, commit and say, okay, this is going to be my thesis. When you don't have time to change the paper. So when you've printed the paper and you walk through the door, that door within it in a hand, that's when you commit to a thesis. Anytime you have got time to get to the paper and change what you say, that's time to change the thesis. You have the opportunity to change your thesis, to change your mind about anything, right up until the time that you hand the paper in. I had a student last year, no, it was in the summer, I think, puts his paper down and says, you know, I kind of changed my mind here. I say, okay, take the paper back and write another paragraph at the end explaining how you changed your mind. Add a paragraph in handwriting that says, I changed my mind a bit. I think this now because this, and this, and this. You see, if you do that, then you're doing exactly what you should do in order to do philosophy, to pass a philosophy class, or at least pass this philosophy class, and also to be a full human being. Because the thing that is supposed to distinguish us from animals is that our behavior is based on rational thought, reasonable thought, thought of the ability to think about everything, even the rules of thought, to think about everything and to make up our minds based on the best logic and evidence available to us right now, to be able to make up our own minds independently. Independent thinking is the summation of being human. Yay! God, that was needlessly messianic. You know, when I start talking like that, you can just check me out. Okay, so the paper is supposed to represent a thinking process. Now, used to be people would ask me how long the paper has to be. And I would give a very long answer which added up to sort of like, well, as long as it needs to be, based on what you're thinking. Now I just say 3 pages. There's no length limit. A paper that is shorter than 2 pages will probably not contain enough work to get you enough to get full credit. This is just based on experience. When I get papers that are 1.5 pages or otherwise under 2 pages, the person usually doesn't say very much. Now, it's perfectly possible for you to be a brilliant writer who can cram an awful lot into 2 pages. But you don't have to, and usually people don't. So if you're worried about a paper minimum, a minimum length, I'm asking for 3 pages, but I won't beat you up if you give me 2. 2.5 is often a good length. All right, so I want to talk about the writing process. There's a movie called The History Boys, in which an instructor at a school tells there's this group of students who are studying for the entrance exams and interviews for the major universities, Oxford and Cambridge. They're studying for Oxbridge entrance interviews. And one of the people preparing them for these interviews says, okay, say you're going to write about the Holocaust. So say you're going to write about Hitler. Everybody says Hitler was a monster. Boring. Find something nice about Hitler and write about that. And that'll impress them. I like the whole rest of the movie, but that bit really pisses me off. Because what he didn't say is, come to your own independent conclusion. If it turns out that Hitler really was a monster, based on the evidence available to you right now, right? If you read all the available evidence, and you come to the conclusion that Hitler was a rat bastard, it doesn't matter whether or not everyone else agrees with you. What matters is, as far as you independently, your independent evaluation of the evidence, that's what the evidence supports. Don't pick a thesis at random. Pick the thesis that is best supported by the evidence. This is not a game where you take some random belief and make it look like it's supported by evidence. That's what politicians and lawyers do. That's what demagogues do. And that is the process that is screwing up the world. Your assignment is to find out the best supported position on your issue. The one that seems to you to be best supported by logic. Now, that doesn't mean that everything you say in the paper has to support that position. It's perfectly fine to say, well, the logic and evidence supports this position. However, I don't personally believe it. I believe something else, and here's why I believe something else. If there's critical thinking involved in that why you believe something else, that's worth extra credit, and it certainly won't cost you anything. The primary assignment is to figure out what position in your chosen topic is best supported by the evidence available to you right now. But you can add on anything else you think. You can make any commentary you like about this topic. And it will be evaluated in terms of rigorous thinking. And that which contains rigorous thinking or imaginative thinking or creative thinking or something else, anything else that's philosophically useful, gets credit. And if it's wrong, if what you're doing is going off on a total wild tangent that doesn't contribute anything to our understanding of the situation, you tried. It's okay, no problem. I ain't going to take points off. So the assignment is, you pick your topic, you get arguments from both sides. Make sure you cover both sides. Don't pick arguments from just one side, because then you're never going to know what's best supported. Then you evaluate the arguments from both sides. And you can add your own arguments into the mix and evaluate them, whatever your thinking is. The best supported position, whatever position turns out to be best supported, basically, if you have two sides and one of them is supported only by crappy arguments, the side with the crappy arguments is not your side. You take the side with the good arguments. Then report your thesis and thinking process. Tell me what decision you came to and explain your logic. Explain the thinking process. You know, if you went down a blind alley in your thinking process, report that. Say, I started out thinking blah, 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 but then I thought blah, blah, and then I thought this other thing. Any part of your thinking, anything that goes into your thinking process can go into the paper. Because anything that demonstrates that you have thought seriously about this is worth credit. It is perfectly possible for a student in this class to turn in a very highly polished paper, a very well-organized, highly polished, very slick paper that is worth 0 points. I had a dude hunt me down again at UCI, where there apparently is a very high idiot ratio. I had a guy hunt me down the next semester and say, why did I get a bad grade for my paper? I gave him a C. I should not have. I should have given him an F. I should have given him 0 points. But my boss told me that we're going to assume everyone's come to class, so don't give anything smaller than a C. So the dude hunts me down, he shows me his paper. 40 pages long. 40 pages with those little embedded quotes where the quote has bigger margins than the rest so you can see it. It's all set off. Lots of footnotes. Paper was on evolution and ethics, and the writer proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that he knew nothing about either evolution or ethics. Absolutely freaking nothing. I didn't read the whole paper. I read the first 5 pages and then I couldn't stand it anymore, and I just sort of skimmed through looking for a place that maybe he'd start making sense. Didn't happen. So he comes to me the next semester And he said, you know, he says, why did I get this bad grade? And I said, well, the quality of your work wasn't up to a good grade. You didn't demonstrate any understanding of this. And he said, well, can you give me an example? And I literally did this. I looked away, flipped through the paper until I came to a random page, picked a paragraph at random, and then read it to him. Okay, here you say that Immanuel, here you give a quote from Immanuel Kant, and here you say that Kant, what you think Kant is saying. But that's not what the quote says. That's totally wrong. Well, can you give me another example? Okay, here you say that morality requires equality, but you don't back it up, and anyway, it's not true. Well, you know, and then he started going, well, but don't you think this and this and this and this? And I said, well, there's two things wrong with that. One, it's not in the paper, so you can't get credit for it. If it's not in the paper, I can't give you credit for it. Second, it's wrong too. So, I would go around this like 3 or 4 times. And then he looks at me and says, but don't you think a paper of this length, with these footnotes and these quotations, deserves a better grade? No. Is there anything else? That was a sweet moment. So, you guys would have to work hard to come up with a worse paper than this one. I think he bought it. People buy papers from the internet. They used to buy them from these research paper houses. And I've seen a number of these papers, and they're invariably stupid. I mean, it looks like a philosophy paper, but it really isn't. Okay. Now, all right, so, okay. Now, your paper can have any structure that works for you. I'm not going to take any points off if your paper turns out to have a different structure from what I like. If it works, it works. You can structure your paper any way you like. Your paper can be a disconnected set of ramblings, a disconnected set of paragraphs which have no clear connection to them. If there is interesting critical thinking going on in there, thoughtful, careful, creative, imaginative, and logical thinking going on in each paragraph, that's what I look for. But if you want a structure, this is the structure I like. It's 4 sections. Start with a thesis, statement of your thesis, and an overview of the rest of the paper. I'm going to say I think cat juggling should be mandatory. I'm going to say so, argue this, because other people, opponents might say blah, but they're wrong because blah. So you have the thesis and an overview of the rest of the paper. Then you have your argument for your thesis. I believe this is true because blah, 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 blah. And don't hesitate to say I in your paper. I know that in other classes you're taught that you don't exist, that the paper just comes and materializes out of the primordial vacuum. but it doesn't really. You're writing it, so you should be there. And they say people who disagree with me might argue this way. You give an argument, at least one argument against your thesis, and you make this as strong as possible. You want to write this in a way that if you showed this paragraph to someone who takes this argument seriously, to someone who agrees with this argument, someone who opposes you on this issue and makes this argument, they'll look at that and say, yes, that is a fair statement of my argument. This is what I would say. This is what I would say. Make it as strong as possible. Don't make it look any weaker than it is. It's very, very important that the other side's arguments be represented fairly. Because if they're not, your conclusion will not be well-founded. There are a lot of people in this world who maintain their beliefs on the basis of ignoring or disparaging or distorting the arguments of other people. This is not critical thinking. This is how we get Al-Qaeda. Okay. If we could have gotten to all these terrorists when they were little kids and taught them to think critically, to look at both sides before making up their mind, Al-Qaeda would have a huge manpower shortage. Nobody would do that crap if they could put logic together.
Maybe they did put logic together, and that's the reason why they're doing what they're doing.
Well, you're welcome. Go ahead. You could make that a paper, but I don't think so. I've looked at their logic. I know.
Isn't there logic that's like good for the...
It's not working for them. Have the Palestinians got a homeland?
No.
Right. Actually, you know who the best... Well, no, I'm not getting into this.
Israel did evacuate part.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, no.
Okay, I might be completely wrong about the terrorists. They might be right, all right? I give it to you, they might be completely right, and if we thought about it, we'd all join Al-Qaeda. But I'm not wearing those stupid robes. What?
I'm playing devil's advocate. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I'll get you a set of horns. Okay, you make the other side's argument as clear and strong as possible. You do the devil's advocate thing. Call this the devil's section. There's the horns. Okay. Then you knock down this argument. Now, this is where it becomes why it's important that you have this thought through ahead of time, that you made up your mind on the basis of logic. Because if you made up your mind on the basis of logic, this argument is weaker than this one. So if this argument is weak, you'll be able to say why it's weak. And the paper will be logically coherent. What happens if you're thinking about this, you're writing the refutation of the argument against the thesis, and you go, oh crap, I can't refute this after all. I can't refute it. Well, then you step back, you think over the subject, you think it over again, you put this draft aside, you think it over again, maybe you change your mind and switch sides, in which case this argument will go up here, and this one will go down here, and you'll say, what's wrong with that argument? It's vitally important to remember that you get to change your mind. In fact, logically, you have a responsibility to change your mind when the evidence tells you to. When the evidence is saying, you're wrong, buddy, you change your mind and be right. You find the right conclusion. So you can change your mind 3 or 4 times in the course of the paper. By the way, when I grade, I don't grade on whether or not you agree with me. think I told you a story about a student who wrote a paper with which I agreed absolutely, but I gave it 0 points because she gave no arguments. It was just a litany of her opinions, which happened to be the same as my opinions. But so what? Got to be backed up by argument. Generally, I don't take points off. However, there are 4 things for which I will deduct points, because they are things that are incredibly easy to avoid. It is really easy to avoid giving a dictionary definition. If you start your paper off with a dictionary definition, I will give you a penalty of 100 points. That means if your paper is otherwise worth a C-, you may get negative 30 points for your paper. Have you ever had a teacher tell you that you should start, or it's a good thing to start by defining your terms? Well, it is. It's a good thing to start by defining your terms. It's not a good thing by copying out somebody else's terms, somebody else's definition. How many of you wrote Webster's Dictionary? Aha, no you didn't. Funk and Wagner's maybe, you got that look. Do not use dictionary definitions in philosophy papers, particularly philosophy papers. A dictionary contains other people's definitions of words. When I read a dictionary definition, it doesn't tell me a damn thing about what's going on inside your head. When you define a term, you tell me what you think that word means. 9 times out of 10, what you think the word means will be different from what the dictionary says it means. And even if it's the same, how am I to tell? How do I know that you use this definition? When you copy a dictionary definition, all you tell me is that you can look up a word in a dictionary and copy over words into your paper. When you give me your own definition of the term, when you tell me what you think it means, you tell me what you think it means, and that's what I need to know. So if your definition of the word, if the way you're using the word is different from what the dictionary says, I want to know what you think. I don't give a rat's ass what the dictionary thinks. Dictionaries are quite often wrong, particularly about philosophical terms. Cop-out is negative 50. A cop-out is someone when you're, let's say you choose a moral question, and you're going to be writing about, I have limited imagination, I'm going to say cat joke again. And at the end of the paper you say, but people disagree about what morality is, so we can't settle the question. If you write that in the paper, you'll probably hear me react to it. Even if you're 100 miles away, you'll probably hear me scream. Okay. First of all, if you don't know the answer to the question, don't write a paper giving an answer. Don't write about that topic. It's kind of futile. Second, that's a cop-out. It's saying, I'm not going to answer the question. That's refusing to do the assignment.
What is it again?
A cop-out. Cop-out is like saying, well, the most common one is, everybody disagrees about morality, so we can't settle any moral question. It's like, well, you're not everybody. You're you. What do you think? Uninterpreted quote. Oh, if you use 2 dictionary definitions, that's negative 200. Okay, an uninterpreted quote. If you quote someone, and you're not really supposed to quote anybody, but you might find occasion to. Right. If you put a quotation in the paper, by the way, what is it called when you put in a quotation but you don't put quotation marks and you don't say that you're quoting? It's called cheating. An uninterpreted quote. If you put in a quote, so-and-so says this, and then go on to a different topic, that is an uninterpreted quote, because you have not told me what you think the quote means. If you put in a quote, follow that quote immediately with what you think the person is saying. What you think the person is saying. Because when you quote, you tell me what someone else thinks. You can't get credit for telling me what someone else thinks. You only get credit for telling me what you think. If you put in a quote, I will have no idea whether or not you understand it. Usually people don't understand quotes. It's weird. Yes, John?
Question for you. Let's say in your argument for the thesis, we'll pick Hitler did a good deed. The mayor at the time that Hitler was taking over, he was bringing jobs into, you're saying, if you take a quote from like that.
Made the trains run on time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just using that as a general, I mean, would that be acceptable because you're trying to.
Well, you can say the mayor said that the trains will run on time, and you don't even have to quote.
Okay.
You don't have to put the quote. Tell me what the guy said in your words. In your words. Put it in your words. I need your words, not somebody else's. If there's any problem, we can talk about this. We can talk about this stuff. And, you know. The penalty for rhetorical questions is small because people who do rhetorical questions usually do a lot of them. And I don't want to give someone a grading penalty of negative 1,200 points. Negative 60 is bad enough. Rhetorical questions have a very, very, very limited use in writing. They can be used to introduce a topic by putting something in the form of a question. But then a writer will answer the question. They'll give an answer to the question. A rhetorical question cannot substitute for a declarative sentence. If you're trying to make a point, make the point. Don't write a question. Don't write, but what about the children? And then go on to a different topic. If you write, but what about the children? You'd better tell me what about the children. You tell me what. Because I'm going to write in the margin, have you ever known someone who tries to make points by asking rhetorical questions? But what if he's right? By the way, I chose that deliberately. It's the most meaningless rhetorical question. But what if Hitler was right? Dude, he wasn't right. But what if he was? Dude, he wasn't right. If you think he was right, you have to come up with an argument. Give me some freaking evidence. Okay, I will admit, the Wehrmacht was the best dressed army of all time. They had the coolest uniforms.
Red coats.
Yeah, okay. With the big tall hat, big tall phallic hats, yeah. Okay, here's a pop quiz with no consequences. This is a phrase that I've seen 5 or 6 times over the course of my academic career. Now the quiz is, what would be the penalty for writing this?
It's a rhetorical question.
What? Yeah, it's a rhetorical question, so there's -5, but it's also something else.
Cop out.
It's cop out, yes.
55.
-55. Now, and you know the worst thing? The worst thing about this is if you write this, I will not be able to resist adding but who's to say what's right or wrong? Well, in this paper, you are. It's up to you. Okay. So
if we put that question, what answered it?
no penalty. Someone out there is going to find a way to put in a dictionary definition, a cop-out, an uninterpreted quote, and a rhetorical question, and not get any, and make it work so I can't take points off. Somebody's going to do that, and I will hate that student for it. All right. Okay. I would like to draw your attention to a document that probably does not apply to anyone in this room. The most depressing thing about teaching is that every so often, averaging about once a semester for me, I'll get a student turn in work that's not his own. Sometimes, at least sometimes, this is ludicrously easy to detect. When a person's been teaching for a number of years, and if they've been paying attention, they get able to tell when a person hasn't written their own paper just by reading it. There's a little light that goes on and you go, hello, I don't think she wrote this. I'm a computer geek, and I'm a logic geek. I'm a, like this. When I see something that looks like it's written by someone else, I sit down and try and figure out ways to catch the person out. And there's over in an administration building, there's quite a number of reports written by me with a stack of evidence on cheating incidents. And really, the other thing is it really pisses me off because I put in a lot of work on your papers. And when I find I put in a bunch of work and I go, hey, wait a moment, you didn't write this. I've wasted half an hour of my life and a lot of red ink. I like that red ink. It's just I feel betrayed, man. Okay. So, I have had people tell me that they didn't know they were cheating. So, I've got this thing here, and I'd like you guys to take a couple minutes and answer the questions. Definition of, yeah. So, Is everyone finished? Anyone still working? Did anyone answer no to any of those questions? You don't have to put your hand up.
Yes, I did, number 7.
Okay. Well, every single one of these is an instance of academic dishonesty. Number 5 is a particularly popular method of cheating. At least I first encountered it at UCI, and I felt, well, the first time I encountered that method of cheating, I thought I was dealing with a schizophrenic, because it didn't make sense. I mean, if you didn't understand the topic, it would look like a paper about the topic that you couldn't understand. But if you understood the topic, it made no freaking sense whatsoever. But it sounded like a philosophy paper. And it's quite clearly cheating. Anything that is not wholly the result of your own sitting down and writing is cheating. If you put someone else's words in there without a citation and quotation marks, that's plagiarism, that's cheating. And it doesn't matter if it's just a sentence. So, okay, well, I should shut up now because this very probably does not apply to anyone in this room. I don't really think there's anyone in this room who would cheat. But then, okay, last thing, and last 5 minutes. Please complete the wrangling survey. If you don't have time to do it before 9:20, you can turn it in Monday. And if you're done now, you can just turn it in and go off. And I want to thank everyone very much for your attention.